YouTube app comes through again. It just crashed. You know, I really couldn't think of, actually I was gonna do Whiskey Wednesday. I was gonna do that last night. And I thought, well, I'll just do Whiskey Wednesday again. It's not Wednesday. So we'll just do Thursday. Thank you, Joe Harding, for the title. I appreciate it. That title, I actually do have a purpose for this video. I wanna go through a couple of business things. Let me pull up my channel so that I can see the comments. We'll let a few people jump in here, and then we're just gonna kind of dive into it really quick. I wanna talk, actually while I'm doing this, I wanna talk about why drivers hate the ELD. I was just talking with one of my drivers, and they were telling me how much they hated sort of the ELD, not necessarily the ELD function, but the tracking function. Because I know that this person hates sort of that big brother kind of ability to sort of see everything. So earlier today, we're implementing a new software. We got the new software up, and so I took a picture. I zoomed in really close. I mean, you can just see tremendous detail. Zoomed in, and the driver got all freaked out. Right? They're like, "I hate this," and I knew they did. I was just trying to push their buttons, and they were like. And what was interesting was the driver said the way that picture looked was exactly the same truck setup that they had at this shipper or receiver, wherever they're at. So he was freaked out because he was like, gosh, this looks like it's almost live, real time. And there he was like, can you see what I'm doing right now? And I was like, yeah, you're flipping me off. He wasn't flipping me off, but I sort of wish. Shadow Wolf, I want to talk to you in a second. I want to talk about you. Guys hate that. I can totally see why. I would hate it too. I would absolutely hate that. For us, it's a lot less about that real specific tracking function. Although there are times when it's really valuable. You guys will be surprised how many times we get a phone call from some random stranger that says, one of our trucks hit them or was backed into them or some accident. And then we pull up the data and we see that we haven't had a truck within 100 miles of that place in a month. So it's really useful for that kind of stuff. Shadow Wolf met one of my drivers a week or two ago, and Shadow Wolf said that he didn't trust me, all that kind of stuff. That was really hurtful, especially since I have the Shadow Wolf approved wash your ass hat. I was disappointed with that. I was not disappointed with that. Hey, on this video, I want to talk a few things really quickly. I've had a few emails come through over the past couple weeks, and there's a lot of questions around structure, I guess not structure for an owner-operator. Maybe sort of asking for a bullet point list of sort of from a business standpoint, right? How to sort of go through that process of the business to be successful. So I threw down a couple of things that I thought I would discuss relative to this. So let me dig into it, then I'll get to the questions. That way, if you don't want to stick around for the questions, you don't have to. I think one of the things that an owner-operator needs to do, also would probably apply for a lease operator, is I know that I understand that you can go and you can pay other companies to set your own authority up, right? And I'm sort of a fan of paying people for sort of easy things to do, right? Or complex things that are time consuming, maybe is a better way to put it, when I could be focusing my time doing something else, right? If I can solve that problem with just a little bit of cash, solve that problem. However, in the case of setting up your authority and that sort of stuff, I really wouldn't recommend that for the simple reason that you need to know what that process looks like, right? It might be really painful for you, but you need to know who to call, what to do, what forms to fill out, what you need to be in compliance with, because when bad things happen, or it comes time to renew that authority, have issues with FMCSA, you name it, you need to know what that process looks like, right? So as painful as that process might be, that is absolutely one of those things that you want to learn what that process looks like, right? You want to be intimately familiar with that process. It will benefit you. It will benefit you down the road. And Johnny, I don't know. I've not done that, right? When we bought the company, sort of pre-go, it was already in there. We just assumed it. But I have heard a lot of people say that it's not that hard. But again, hard is a relative term, sort of like smart, sort of like, successful. All those things are very relative terms. But whether or not you find it easy or whether or not you find it hard, it's one of those things that you really need to do that. Let's see, are we here to learn from a drunk nobody? Well, let's see, I am a nobody and I'm not drunk, but I'm sure that you can probably learn something, Trucker Steve. Let's see. So, number one, do all of your own research and complete all your own paperwork so that you know what that process looks like. Number two, you need to understand that in any small business, for that matter, any business, it is a marathon and not a sprint. Right? It is absolutely going to be a marathon. I have had a couple of my companies, I've talked about this in the past. One of them, I ensured that I had the customer before I even set up the company, before I even filed for the EIN. I already had the customer, I already had the relationships with the executives, the CFO. I'd already presented in front of their board of directors. I already had approval for this. And a pretty significant amount of money. Right? Pretty significant amount of money. And so at that particular point, then I went and set up the EIN, had my partnerships and stuff, already set up. And I was good. I knew from that point in time, that I was good. I did not have to make another penny in for that company for the next couple of years. And I was financially secure. And so that took a lot of relief off. A lot of people would have celebrated, they would have spent money, they would have done a lot of things that would have extended the time for the next customer, the next opportunity. But I'm telling you, the best time for you to go and find another deal or find another direct customer is right after you've just closed one already, right? Trucking, I think, is very much a marathon. It's not a sprint. The margins are low, even in today's times. They're low. So don't look at this as a get-rich-quick opportunity. There's probably a lot of people laughing at the thought of that right now, but it's not. It's not a get-rich-quick scheme. Know what your costs are and plan on making strategic decisions, anticipating good and bad things that are going to happen to you and your business, and understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right? If you look into having a really strong cash flow or a fair amount of profitability early on, great. Understand that the second kind of 2A, if you will, if the second bullet point is know that it's a marathon, not a sprint, then 2A is cash is always going to be king for you. Bad things usually can and will happen at some point, so stash that cash, right? Number three, to be successful in any business, right? You have to, let's define success. As we mentioned a moment ago, success is a relative term. So let's define success. Success is turning profitability, right? Turning profit and staying in business, right? Those are sort of the two things that we'll define as success. To really be able to determine what your profitability is, you have to know what your costs are. Right? I can tell you in this other business I was just using as an example, I had partnerships established. I had a lot of things established before ever getting the EIN. And in those circumstances, I knew what my costs were going to be for the service and for the equipment. I knew I'd done all that homework. So I knew beforehand, I'd done all that homework, I'd done all that research, and I knew what it was going to take. And so for you guys, you can run some of your own numbers to determine a couple different examples of what your costs will be, your true cost per mile. And I did say cost per mile. I did not say cost per day. And I'll talk about that just here in a little. I'll address that in a different bullet point kind of later. I've got 10 bullet points. So we're on to number 4. There's 2 things that's going to be really important relative to the financial stability of your company. Driving revenue is really, really important. right? It absolutely is. You've got to be generating revenue. The sooner you generate revenue, the better off you're going to be. However, understand this, you can go out of business generating revenue. I mean, for that matter, you can go out of business generating profit, right? If some bad thing happens. But those that think in terms of just generating revenue, by and large, those are the individuals that are robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? They are living week to week for paychecks because they need that money right now to be able to afford fuel or other expenses or to pay stuff at home, whatever it may be. They're basically robbing Peter to pay Paul. When you get into that just generating revenue, that is not a healthy place for a business. And I have been at companies that had to do that because they had found themselves in a bad situation. And that is a really tough hole to dig yourself out of. If you were that individual a year ago or a year and a half ago in trucking that was just living on that generating revenue model and not knowing costs and profitability, you were thrown one of the biggest get out of jail free cards that the industry has thrown in probably 10 or 15 years. And that was the state of the current economy, the state of the current rates. All you have to do now to go out and generate profit is jump in, shut the left door, and start shifting gears, right? The longer you can stay out, the better off you're gonna be, right? The more you have to go home, right, it's gonna hurt you. If you live in a particular area, like Florida or some of these other states, you know, Phoenix is one of those. Dallas, in a weird sort of way, is one of those that is really has pretty high highs and pretty low lows. But you've got to get out of that mindset of generating revenue to sustain a business, and you have to get into the mindset of driving profitable revenue. And that comes from knowing your cost, right? So that's bullet point 4. Bullet point number 5. You want to go into that process of defining costs and things of that nature as accurately as you can. But in every business that you're starting up, you're likely not to have a great amount of specificity relative to costs, right? You're gonna have to make some assumptions. So bullet point number 5 is overestimate your expenses and underestimate your revenue, right? Do those things so that you're sort of creating an inherent fudge factor so that you can, hopefully, when bad things happen, you've sort of estimated correctly in both arenas to help you be successful. There's a reason, you can Google this, there's a reason that a large percentage of companies fail within the first 2 years, right? There's a reason, because they don't correctly estimate their costs and directly estimate their revenues. And I'm not gonna go into, it's sort of a whole different conversation when you get into talking about businesses that aren't trucking related. So I'm not gonna go down those particular paths because most of the people that watch this are trucking related, but just understand when you get into the trucking side of this and you're estimating your cost, you know, overestimate the expenses or the costs, underestimate your revenues to ensure that you're gonna be in good shape. All right, number 6. When it comes to you know, having that sustainable business and doing sort of those first 5 bullet points, you want to be just radically passionate about understanding where you're gonna get your money from. You wanna be radically passionate about the lanes, the rates, your customers or potential customers, deadhead. You wanna be so hyper-focused on identifying those things that are gonna put you into potential trouble so that you can avoid those. And as I've talked in several of the videos on this channel and my other channel, my first channel, in life, in sports, in business, one of the key things that keep people out of trouble, and trouble for a business is financial harm, is the ability to anticipate things happening that are gonna cost you money. Whether that's spending time on apps like Doc 411 to identify that particular shipper or receiver you know, has long load times or long unload times that could hamper or hurt your profitability, whether it's weather, whether it's, you know, maintenance, things of that nature. You want to be able to anticipate that. And one of the ways that's so key for anticipation in our business is anticipating when lanes tend to change. When is freight hot out of particular areas? When does it typically die off, right? the only way you're going to be able to do that is either one, through experience, and usually it takes a couple years of running the truck as a lease operator or an owner operator to determine where those lanes get hot and not. And there's also a fair amount of data. DAT is, I think, probably the best website where you can find some of that information. There's a lot of information there that you can really determine, right? So that's a really key portion of that. Number 7, with trucking, right, there are going to be times when you need an attorney possibly to review some contracts or maybe write some contract language for you. Things like accessorials, right, detention and things like that. Understand that there are a lot of things that brokers or shippers could put within that contract that could really hurt your business. Maybe some of you guys are really strong at doing your taxes and some aren't, right? Maybe you need to enlist the help of a CPA. Point number 7 is determine honestly with yourself, which hat in the business do you wear best, right? You should definitely be the best driver in your company, right? If you're an owner operator. If you've got a small fleet, you should still be the best driver. You need to also be the best at identifying your costs and understanding your profitability. But maybe you aren't the best at taxes, or maybe you aren't the best at finding lanes or things of that nature. There's a time when you need to understand where you're not the best at. And one, you want to elicit that help. If that means you have to pay for it, so be it, right? But you got to get that help. Be willing to pay for that help. Be willing to have a profitable enough company that you can secure that help all the time while you learn how not to allow that to be an area where you're deficient, right? So understand kind of where you're best at within your company and get help from those areas that you're not. Number 8, increase your value, not your discount. Right? Increase your value, not your discount. When you get into situations, and I've had conversations for a year now with drivers that talk about value and when to be successful. When I talk to individuals that discuss that revenue per day model or identifying cost per day, in every single conversation, and look, there are times when cost per day is appropriate. I've talked about that ad nauseum. It really comes down to when you're booking short loads, that's where you really want to start to understand what your cost per day is. But here's the thing that you shouldn't miss. When it comes to those guys that talk about revenue per day, in every single conversation that I've had with individuals like that, what they ultimately are getting to is, I want to know what my costs are per day so that I can discount or lower my price a little bit so that I can be more competitive. At the outset, if you're getting the business and it's profitable for you, that's not a bad thing, right? Again, because it's profitable. But you just need to be really cautious that you're not discounting too much. And that gets back to point number 6, which is be radically passionate about the lanes, the rates, what you can be charging and what you shouldn't be charging. Again, I think I did a video 2 or 3 days ago where I was discussing some of the data from DAT. And the profitability for the brokers is over 20 times what it was this time last year. Well, not this time, excuse me, by the end of Q2. So brokers are 20 times more profitable at the end of June than they were last year. So my question to you is, or to me, right, is your business 20 times more profitable at the end of June than it was last year? If it's not, then you are discounting too much. You're not increasing your value, but you are increasing your discount. So whoever that was, it's all having the load, right? Again, simple thing. If you're not tracking, if you're not doing what number 6 is, which is being radically passionate about rates and lanes and research and data, then you don't know that brokers are 20 times more profitable at the end of June than they were last year. If you look at your P&L and you go, well, I'm not 20 times more profitable, then that means you need to be negotiating better. It means you need to have more information, more ammo for you to go out and secure better rates. So number 8 is increase your value, not your discount. Number 9, I talked about this on my first channel. I had the pleasure actually, of spending some time with Jack Nicklaus. one of either the best or the second best golfer ever. And we were talking a little bit about golf, and he would talk about when he's standing on a tee box, he's aiming at the smallest thing that he can find in the distance. And so number 9 is aim small, miss small. So if you aim at the smallest target in the distance that you can, if you miss the smallest target by 100%, now that's what your miss looks like. If you're aiming really big and you miss really big, that can be really detrimental to your business. So get in the habit of setting really specific goals, really specific targets for revenue, whether that's per day that you're wanting to achieve, per week, those sorts of things. Make sure that you are trying to achieve that. Maybe one of your goals needs to be, I need to really hammer down my cost per mile, right? I want to make X number of dollars this year, right? When you're tracking cost per mile and you're staying up on that because you've really narrowed down your focus and your target, you'll be able to know what is going to be needed to be done the last half of the year or the last quarter of the year for you to be able to achieve that, right? Number 10, last one, and then we'll jump into those questions. Number 10, wealth without health doesn't freaking matter, right? You can have all the money in the world, and you know, if you don't have the health to go out and enjoy the rewards for all of your hard work, then you're sort of just missing out, right? You're just missing the point. In our industry, it is just conditioned. It is ripe for opportunities to live a very, very unhealthy lifestyle, right? You're sitting in a truck for countless hours a day. Truck stop food, there's just not a good opportunity, right? You have to spend a lot of effort and planning in addition to your normal everyday job and all the work and planning that should require and should entail to try to eat healthy out on the road, right? Trust me, I did it. I didn't do it in a truck. I did it on an airplane. And I was on, I was on expense accounts, right? It didn't come out of my pocket, right? And even then, it's kind of hard to be healthy. So number 10, wealth without health. Everything that you're doing all these years, missing family time and what have you, kind of just makes it all not worthwhile. So let's see, Rhino, how's it going? Mark, Dash Kim Sam, welcome. Barb, truck driving lady, how's it going? Brent, Shadow Wolf, how are you, ma'am? John Hall, let's see, yeah, just a little. I hadn't had I think the last glass of whiskey I had was the last time I had one here, which was probably a couple months ago. Jim says, 4 fellow students and I drove our instructor down to Georgia. We've returned to Wisconsin. You test out tomorrow. Good night, man. Good luck. Yeah, TJ, good old Pendleton. Can't go wrong there. Buck Wild, I owe you a call back. Can I call you tomorrow? Let's see, Johnny, TJ, loved your video about trucker salaries. Well, good. That was one of those that a lot of numbers throwing out, and I hope that it was, there was just a lot of numbers, so I hope that was good. There's been some decent feedback on that. It's a violation of right to privacy. So what you're talking about is obviously some of the tracking and stuff like that. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree. Look, I can sort of see the argument when you're looking at like driver-facing cameras. Man, I don't think I would drive for a company that did that. Well, let me rephrase that. If I were a driver, I would not drive for a company that had driver-facing cameras. Relative to the other stuff, I guess what I would ask is this. I wish Howard was in here. Well, I see Cannell, you're here. Cannell was in the office, transportation manager for a little while for us. You might think that you are just a really solid driver. And what I can tell you is you very well may be. But if you had any idea the things, the stuff, the nonsense, some of this stuff is absolutely mind-boggling, head-scratching stuff. And so the ability to see what happened, where your truck was at, again, to prevent some of those false insurance claims. We had a driver here a while back that we hired that was with us for just a very, very short amount of time. Was driving down I-70 in Kansas and did a U-turn through the median, right through one of the like emergency pass-throughs. Now, he was bobtail, and that was really concerning, right? We wouldn't have known that unless we tracked it. Now, thankfully, we saw that. We had people, there was another driver also that called in. The driver then said, well, I was bobtail, as if that made it better. It didn't. But what that did raise the question of, why were you bobtail? Where was the truck? Or excuse me, where was the trailer? So the trailer was down by the shop without a lock. So there are a lot of things that, again, are just head scratching that you guys might not never do, you would never think to do, but you just can't fathom some of the stuff that happens. So, Superfy, how are you? Greg Inman, welcome, man. Privacy doesn't come into play on public roadways. Supreme Court decided that. There you go. Joe Harding. Oh, man. Trucker Steve. We got a good, welcome. We got a good, I haven't had a good troll in a while. Canal, you should have left some of his comments in there. I'd be happy to play ball. Let's see. Everybody should, I'll read it out for you. Trucker Steve said, everybody should learn from a real trucker, not a desk jockey. Trucker Steve, I assure you that there's probably plenty of things that I could learn from you. Even as ignorant as you probably are in driving the truck, I'm sure there's probably something I could learn. I guarantee you, at worst, you could probably teach me what not to do, like to ensure what some of our drivers should not do. I could probably learn that from you. And I also assure you that you could probably learn some stuff from me, just like you could from other people. Dan says, on of YouTube truckers, O-N, says he'll grow 600,000 running doubles for Landstar with ELD. That has to be, on ELD, that has to be legal hours. That seems like a really hard to believe number, but I don't know, like maybe they're running team as well. I don't know, but good for them. That's great. Someone pissed in Steve Eusterius, right, Ski Dog? I don't know who that troll is. He's new, but we'll play. I don't care. Emmett says, how does it become a violation when a track comes to vehicle? Yeah. Hypocrite Bruster, welcome. It says, I love drama. So do you, right? Not particularly. I'm not the biggest fan of it, if you guys want to know the truth. Larry Jeans in the house, welcome. Trucking is not a get rich quick. No, it's not. I'm going to try to jump down a little bit. I'm way behind. Emmett says, the conversation that Chad didn't want to say a lot more to this than get your authority and run. It's easy. Yeah, and Greg, you know that better than a lot of guys. Trucker Steve says, behind the scenes, all the drama, please, man, please, Steve, if that's what you think, show us all that proof, please, right? You'll be sadly disappointed, buddy. Shutter Wolf says, kind of like the stock market, longevity can and does work for sure, but it's all a risk, and like you've got to have an alternate plan, learn, remember where you came from. Yeah, I don't know if I've told this story before. I was 20 some odd years old, pretty fresh out of college, was working for AT&T. I was fortunate enough to go hunting with a guy that was president of one of the largest business divisions, sort of took me under his wing. One of the guys that reported directly to him had an office the size of my house. And his name was Steve, and really dark, rich kind of cabinets behind his desk, and he was a super nice guy. We used to hunt and all that good stuff. And he had a can of Vienna sausages, right? Vienna sausages, had a can up there. And it was sort of placed like right, sort of offset from his head. And I think he did that intentionally so that people would ask why. And I did, and I was like, man, I used to eat those growing up. Why? What's up with that? I don't expect to see that in this office. And he basically, his story was basically he was from Arkansas. He's like, that's sort of where I came from. And I don't ever want to forget that's where I came from. Very wealthy individual, right? Made a lot of money, but really humble guy. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. Shadow Wolf, you're absolutely right. Brandon Spears in the house, how are you? Trucker Steve, no, I didn't threaten any lawsuits to people that expose me. As I said, if you were to pay real close attention there, buddy, I don't mind if people want to say all the negative stuff that they want. My only point is just make sure it's truthful. If it's not truthful, then I have an issue, right? It just so happens, I'll just leave that there. All right, I'll leave that there. Wayne, how's it going? Is that cost projection? Is what cost projection? Oh, Will says, I don't get the point of this. Marvin the Martian has all the answers already. Donald says, left an address on the reply you left me. Donald, was that on email? I don't know that I saw that. If that was on email, let me know. Overthinking, it's not rocket science. You're right. How do you define success? Well, and look, it is very subjective, right? I think it's different for everybody. My definition, it's irrelevant. Well, all that matters is what your definition is, right? Make sure that you can achieve that. Brokers flat out stealing from you. No, they're not stealing from you, right? Look, they're not stealing from you. They are in business to turn a profit just as well as you are. All that, look, listen, here's what this means, guys. If brokers on average, right, and that's what this was, are 20 times more profitable, what does that mean? That means that they out-hustled you, they outplayed you, they outworked you. That means they went out and negotiated better rates with the market conditions for those customers that they have than you are doing against them. That's all that matters. That's all that means. I mean, that means they outworked you, me, everybody else. Because I'll tell you right now, my business profitability is not up 20%, or excuse me, 20-fold. Okay? So they outworked me, they out-hustled me. So, but that information is really valuable. Now we know to go out and be far more aggressive on our rates, right? So again, if you're not doing whatever bullet point that was, where I was talking about be just radically passionate about knowing the data, we miss out, right? We miss out. But I don't think they're stealing, right? That's what they should do. They're in business, just like what we should do. Arturo's World says, what's up with all that? Who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe Trucker Steve, maybe he just needs to have a glass of whiskey and calm down. Let's see. Canal says, True Randy, I'm Billy Joe Bob Ross. If you guys haven't seen Canal's paintings, I gotta tell you, man, he's doing some incredible stuff. And you just started this, right? I mean, this isn't like some hidden thing that you've been doing for like 10 or 15 years. Like, you're new to this, right? It's really impressive stuff, man. It looks good. Wyoming Cowboy, hello from the 307. Welcome, man. Charlie and Greg are having conversations. Ike says, that's all I have in the load. Yeah, saw it earlier. I need more paint thinner. When I used to play, I judged my success on how many balls I didn't lose that day, right? Different levels of success for different people. Harding, I know where Harding's at. He was having, he wanted, what did you want? You were trying to order applesauce and potatoes, and they were all out of both or something like that. But I'm glad to hear that you got your pork chop. Little Viking Coach, actually saw one of your videos today for the first time. Funny stuff. I should be probably concerned with him having a paint thinner addiction. Broker stealing, they do. They steal attention and layover routinely. That's my point, not rates. Boy, I will say it sure feels like that. Having said that, the way to combat that is to, whatever, bullet point 2 or 3 or something like that, get an attorney, or do some research online and put some language in your contracts. And your contract, just so everybody knows, your rate con's a contract. So if you get something in there, download it to your computer, have an editor on PDF or with pen, strike through it with red, and say, I don't agree to that. Or write in, hey, my detention is whatever you want it to be. If it's $100 an hour, write it in. Layover, TANU, write it in. Right? Write it in, make them sign it. Right? Cover yourself. Let's see here. Randy Spears says, that's the real assassin. Todd Kirkwood, do we have to send you money or is this free info? William says, brokers are smart. We need to be smart too. Man, right? I mean, like I said, I mean, trust me, I don't like going out and playing a bad round of golf. I don't like going out and not being successful in business. And I most certainly do not like it at all knowing that somebody else in my industry outworked, out-hustled, and is kicking my butt for 20 times the profitability as they were last year. And I'm not, I mean, they kick my ass, right? I don't like it, but it's up to us. You're right. Truck Assassin says, Randy, they took down my original channel. Well, I had that happen to me, man, so that sucks. Let's see. Econs and Sugar Shine, how are you guys? Slayer of Death. There's a lot of people that steal in here. Yeah, that's one of the, I mean, there's a couple things that I despise about this industry. The lies, the deception, the theft. I mean, there's a lot of situations of theft, drivers stealing from companies, you name it, right? And I'm sure there's plenty of examples where companies are you know, stealing from drivers. I had several emails, was it now 2 weeks ago, where drivers were telling me that they were running as a lease operator on a percentage and that the companies were not sharing their rate confirmations with them. That in and of itself is certainly not theft, but if they're manipulating those numbers or not sharing the exact numbers, it certainly kind of opens the door a lot more for some funky stuff to be happening. So, you know, brokers, you name it, right? Lumpers, I mean, hello, raise your hand if you despise that. I don't get that. SoCal, as you should. Assassin, what do you say? I missed it. Rain Man savant when it comes to painting. Yeah, no doubt. Donald says it was on a live feed. You were talking about how to call brokers. Hey, do me a favor. I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you don't mind, just shooting me an email to thetruckingexec@gmail.com. And if I missed responding to something, maybe I can, something like that. Shadow Wolf, take care, man. Assassin, it does seem like a lot of people get in their feelings. It does seem like that. You know, I made the comment here a couple weeks ago, and I said I thought that I had really thick skin. And I genuinely did. This is sort of like it's a relative thing, right? Like success. I thought I had really thick skin until probably those first 6 months or so of YouTube. I realized I didn't have nearly as thick of skin as I thought I did. So if YouTube has done anything for me, it has made my skin a little bit more thick. Let's see, regarding brokers, then they say they dare you to take them to court over $500. Yeah, look, we all know there's a lot of really, really shady brokers, for sure. Benjamin Duke, do you put the cost of detention and details of detention, time of layover rates in the contract rate confer or not? Absolutely you should, right? I just addressed that a minute ago before I got to your comment, but definitely do that. You bet. Absolutely. One of my drivers steals socks. Well, I don't know. Let's define theft. I mean, technically he paid for that, right? I don't know what the details are on that. I don't know how that plays out. William, I agree, man. The whole lumper thing, it does seem like organized crime. I don't know which driver it was, but we were out in West Texas. Gosh, I don't remember where we were at. Some small town. And I think they charged like $600 to unload like half a trailer. It was insane. Randy Spears says he stole an entire pack of ketchup from Wendy's today. I have a really big drawer full of Diablo sauce from Taco Bell, and I will admit that I have a couple of containers of buffalo sauce from Chick-fil-A. Loan me a pair. Raymond Diddy says, Scott, I'd like to debate you at GATS for a fee of $7,000. Man, Raymond, I'm not going to go to GATS. But I'll tell you this. I'll debate you for $6,000 on the phone. How about that? That a deal? Where are you at? Says, only way I would be in my own business is as an owner-operator. Company lease or lease purchase is total nonsense. Look, if you follow my channel, especially my first channel, I was really adamant against lease. Over the past probably, well, no, almost a year now, rates have changed. I think there's a lot better opportunity for guys to go out and be successful. I will tell you that look, I'll use me as a good example. If I were going to go get my CDL and I were going to jump in a truck and I was going to do the owner operator lease operator thing, knowing what I know now versus 3, 4, 5 years ago, there's a really decent chance. I don't know that I would probably lease on to a company. I would probably be an owner operator, own my own stuff, but I would probably lease on so that I can get the dispatch servicing of a really good company, right? Because I think there is, again, I've done that job, right? And there is so much value from being able to post trucks and have someone looking at the computer all day for those really good loads and making phone calls on those really good loads. There's a lot of value in that. And I think if you find the right percentage or the compensation structure for the right company, it's probably worth the right percentage. I'm not saying all companies are that way, but that's where I see a lot of the significant value, right? I really do. Does that warrant a full-on lease? No, but again, a lot of guys they don't have the down payment. They've just not taken care of their business, which I think leads to them getting into business is sort of in jeopardy right from the start. I'll tell you guys this. I've interviewed some guys, and we actually hired 2. We haven't hired one like this in a couple of years because we learned the lesson. There were a couple of times when we had interviewed drivers, and they said, "Look, I need a cash advance like right when I get there. I can't even afford to get there, all that sort of stuff." And so we tried to help them out, do the right thing. We thought, but I'm telling you really, really quickly, the lesson that I've learned is if those individuals are in that bad of a situation. I'm not saying that there aren't extenuating circumstances, medical issues and divorce or whatever. I'm just saying in the few examples where we have hired someone that is just in absolute financial jeopardy and duress, it's been an absolute debacle to the point where I just said I won't do that again, right? So typically if guys are sort of taking care at least to some degree of their credit or their finances, they're probably going to be in a different situation. Only the Lonely says, what determines with 2 employee versus 1099? So look, that's really easy. I won't spend a boatload of time on this. You can find those answers online, FMCSA as well. That's a good place to be. But I will tell you guys this. For those that are treated as 1099s or W-2s, there's some really fine lines that need to be walked, right? And so if you are a lease operator, owner operator type of guy, and you're W-2'd, man, you need to really dig into that, right? You need to really dig into that. Now, the other thing I can tell you is different states have very different regulations. Some states are transportation company friendly. Some are not. Right, so it's sort of predicated on where that company is incorporated at, right? So understand that for those of you guys that are the W-2s, or the other side of the coin, right? If you're 1099, just make sure you know where you're at because there can be pros and cons to you as the driver on both scenarios. But legally there are some requirements that you need to follow. It's going to vary kind of state to state. In some cases, right? When you get down to the very, very specifics. So research that for your own state where you're at. Sugar Daddy, what'd you say there? Gotcha. Let's see. Ron Haynes says, I'm in good health and have an offer to go back into driving. I'm 7 years old. Any rules about age? Not that I know of off the top of my head. If you can pass the test, I think you're good. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Maybe somebody else can chime in. Rain Spirit says, what's behind me? I don't know. That's a mirror. That's a chair. I don't know. What's behind me? Raymond Lady said, Scott, I'll debate you on landline for 8,000. Sold. I'm not going to talk past the close. Sold. Hitchcock Transport says, if you're coming to GATS, make sure you remember to bring, I'm not going to come to GATS. The trade shows just aren't my thing. Yeah, Greg, you're definitely right. Experience in negotiating, and I'm going to try to do a video on that here sooner rather than later. I still owe some other gentleman a video on detention. I need to do that. I've told him like the last 2 weeks I was going to do it the last 2 weeks. What Canel says, he'd have to give all of his recruiting money back for that debate to happen. No, Raymond, I've got it in writing. You said that you would, no, that's fine. SoCal says, nothing's wrong with either one or both parties if they follow the rules. Yeah, I mean, again, right, it just sort of depends on if you want the write-offs and you need the write-offs, you're expecting the write-offs and you don't get them. I mean, there can be there are pros and cons to both sides, right? That's my point, is you just need to understand what side of the fence you're on, what your specific situation is with your contracts with your company. Ray Spears says, none of it really matters. It can all go up in flames in a matter of minutes. True. Thanks, Donald. Appreciate that. I'll look at it. Tricker Daddy says, shucks, y'all going to make me resubscribe to Scott so I can keep up with the gossip. So Cal, he's got his cap locks on again. He's always screaming it. Norma says, hello, hello. Little Viking says, when's the pool party? Oh, man, I tell you, I think Briggs and I are probably going to go jump in right after this. William says, I'm a company guy, crane and rigging, flatbed, boom sections, counterweights. Pays good, but I see a lot happening, and I feel like I'm just a spectator. 4 dogs at home, so I'd have to run local day trips. There's plenty of local runs. Norma, I said hello. Where you at says, need your take on whether California is truck business friendly to start and or run LLC. So, no. How about that? Not particularly, no. Well, let me rephrase that. No, I'm not going to go say not particularly. That would probably be one of the, of the 50 states, that would probably be somewhere around, 45 through 50 on my list. Hitchcock says, LVC is having a free topless truck wash. That's right, I forgot about that. He and Sugar Shine, right? Aren't they doing something like that? I remember that. Only Lonely says, thanks for the information, Exec. You're welcome. Donald says, enjoy the lovely heat in Arizona. Yeah, it's not bad. It's cooled off this week. It's like 102, I think. Trigger Daddy, thanks, man. I tell you, Kristen called me, was it yesterday, 2 days ago, and said that the place had the ashes, right? They cremated Gracie, so they had the ashes. We're going to send them, and they had her bandana and stuff. So it just sort of like ripped that scab right off. But thank you for that. I appreciate it. Very good. Where are we at? 48 minutes. A couple more questions, and then maybe we can keep one underneath an hour. I don't know. Let's kick that idea around. Need the write-offs, so get a perpetual payment. Put money into retirement, yes. Buy property to rent out, not a bad idea. Why would you make payments? Some guys can't help but to make payments. Why make someone else rich? Because you're scared to invest into something. Well, I don't disagree with any of that. Dashcam says, great bullet points, good advice. Any advice on being able to stand out above the average competitor? So, here's the thing, it's not that difficult, right? It's not. Now, so understand this, right? In today's age, right? What is this, August 2018? Brokers pretty much need any truck, right? They need any truck. And they're willing to pay for any truck. They're probably willing to pay just a little bit more. Again, you know now that they are 20 times more profitable, so they got more in it than they did last year. So you selling that value, really simple things help you stand out above a lot of the drivers, right? And again, if Howard were in here, Cannell, all you guys, you don't have to work on this side of the desk to see it. You guys are in a truck stop every single day. You see what's walking around, right? I mean, come on. So your advantage of let them know where you're at on hours, just to let them feel comfortable that there should be no issues, right, with you getting there on time. Ask them, what their needs are, what's important. How can I make you look good in front of your shipper? Is there anything I can do particularly special? Just say hello to anybody in the office for you. Talk about your availability, what your equipment is, this and that. Add value. How do you want me to communicate with you? Phone calls, voicemail, or phone calls, email, text message, right? Don't need to worry about calling me. I'll call you, right? Just a lot of little things that you can do just to make them feel comfortable that they're not going to have to spend their time and effort and energy to babysit you. All right? You do that, and just a few of those little things go a long way. I'll tell you the biggest thing, and this goes for any business, not just trucking, but I think the opportunity exists more in trucking than it does in a lot of other industries, because there are a lot of times that things happen, bad things happen, right? Whether you're under the load, you got a flat tire, a turbo, whatever it is, bad things happen. That is an opportunity for you to communicate well and problem solve for that broker or that shipper or that receiver. When you call them to let them know what bad thing has happened, don't just tell them what bad thing has happened. Tell them what bad thing happened and how you're going to solve that, right? Let them know that, yeah, this bad thing happened, roadside's on its way. I don't anticipate this being a huge delay, but I want you to be aware. As soon as I get back on the road and rolling, I'll shoot you a text. Maybe it's going to be 9 o'clock at night. Do you want an email instead? I don't want to wake you up. I mean, have the solution already in hand, and that will bode well, not just for that run. You've already secured that rate, but what happens if you get to that receiver and you get into a detention situation? Are they more apt to help you out because you did a better than average job in communicating and being honest and problem solving, right? So just little things, right? Just little things. William, good night, man. Leasing is just getting rid of money, right? Again, Benjamin, I think it sort of depends on your situation and that of the company. There are a lot of lease deals that are exactly that, right? Hang on a second. There are a lot of lease deals that are exactly that, for sure. But again, right, if you can't afford the down payment for a truck and trailer yourself and you have to go to lease, you need to do your homework on looking at a lot of leases. I oftentimes wonder I would love to see the study on how many different lease contracts the average driver reviews before making a decision. Because here's what my hunch is. Based on some of the conversation, I am willing to guess that the truck that company is offering is probably a bigger decision criteria than the contract that lease company is offering. Now that's sad. Now I get some of you guys are Peterbilt guy, Kenworth, Volvo, whatever, right? I get that. But man, oh man, what really matters is if you love that truck so much, I would want to make certain that if I'm going to be putting 5 years on the line to go and get that truck that I want so bad, I would make sure that the contract is going to allow me to be successful and own that truck in 5 years, right? Unless you just want to rent a job, right, a salary, then you got to spend the time to read a lot of these different contracts, contact a lot of these different companies. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, there are plenty of companies that probably pay 72% of the load to the driver that are a hell of a lot better than the companies that are paying 85% to the driver. I mean, it's not just the percentage, it's all the details in the percentage that's going to roll up to how much you can make at the end of that week or that year. Dave Barr says, where's the party? It's right here, man. Right here. Where you at? Says, thank you for the input on California. That's exactly what I thought anyways. Yeah, it's not the place you want to be. C. Gonzalez says, what do you think is the best freight to carry if you live in the Bronx, New York? Van, flatbed, thanks, man. So I don't know if Yukon's still in here. Yukon's probably the only guy that I know that knows that area incredibly well. If Yukon's in here, maybe he can chime in. We don't go to to the Bronx and to New York all that often. What I can tell you is you can probably spend a few minutes on DAT, even though you might not have a subscription to DAT. You can probably find enough information that's free on DAT that might give you a really good idea. But I'm not that guy, unfortunately, so I apologize. Man, Randy, I almost said that too. I don't remember what that movie that was for, but then I figured, YouTube would probably like strike the video or something. So I didn't say that. That's funny. Great video yesterday on market specifics, industry trends. You're welcome. Randy Spears said he was on thin ice. Who was on thin ice? Who did I say that? A simple thank you does go a long way. Absolutely, man. Look, I'll tell you this as well. I mean, handwritten thank you notes. Just a thing of the past, right? And I guarantee you when somebody receives them, it's a nice thing. So a simple thank you, if you have the time to just send a quick handwritten, just a really short thank you, man, that goes a long way too. Jonathan Bearden's in the house, good evening. Trigger Daddy says, shave, speak politely, say please, thank you, dress professionally, leave a good impression, absolutely. Canal says he just ordered a Platinum Uber X by touching a button. What are you talking about? Benjamin Duke says, that's easy, none. LOL, the one they're looking at the moment. Yeah, you're talking about the contracts or yes. I'm afraid you're right. And again, I've had a lot of conversation with a lot of different drivers, and like when I ask that question of who all they've looked at or how many contracts they've reviewed, it's rare that I get the answer of, oh my gosh, I don't know, 10, 20, 30. It's usually like, well, I looked at this company, this company, this company, right? 2 or 3. It's like, oh man, there's like a million out there. Thomas Will says, when are we going deer hunting? Man, late last night, I was looking at some plot maps. Benjamin Duke says, like 90% don't make it past the 2-year on leases. That's probably true. Mr. Corona says, are you inviting me to a drink? Yeah, absolutely. I don't drink Corona, though. You have to be, it's BYO Corona. BYO Corona. Percent of what matters? Exactly, right? Exactly. Again, percentage of what? What are you hauling? Dry van, right? Flatbed, reefer, you name it. What areas are you going to run? Is there direct freight? Can you haul outside freight? Are you predicated to only hauling their freight? Do you have a trailer payment? Do you get fuel surcharge? Do you get to see the rate con? I mean, you just go on and on and on about a lot of these details. What's insurance look like? Is there a rate that insurance can go up? Is it capped? Is it not capped? Stop me when, right? Just a million different things. Who's responsible for, for tires? Do they have a roadside assistance? Look, how many times do the lease operators think to say, what's your roadside assistance program? What do tires cost? Do I get a discount? Yes, no, maybe so. Do I get a discount on roadside? Is there an unlimited number of times I can be towed this month, next month, this year? Right? Because all those things matter a lot. And they matter when, look, we all know that breakdown happens when you least want it to happen, right? And so how many people think to spend a few minutes and ask questions about the insurance or towing or things of that nature? I mean, a lot of that stuff can matter really big dollars. California is great if you're paid by the hour. Yeah, no doubt, right? Spirit says, RBT has the answers. Call now, schedule appointment. Corona says, have a bottle of double black ready to pour when I get home. Not a Jack fan. So there we go. Look, we're at 30 seconds from an hour. So you know what to do? You guys are making miles. Stay safe. Just my opinion from this side of the steering wheel. Take care, guys. See ya.